It was 7 years ago. I was just finished my sixth speech at Toastmasters. Marcelo was giving me a nice, funny Italian man was giving me a evaluation. And that is when he told me the same thing he told me in each written evaluation. You got to add more jokes. That is my Italian accent. The problem is I did. It's just nobody thought they were funny. Humor is a very important aspect of speaking. Humor is a way to connect with the audience. If you can make somebody laugh, they are more likely to like you. Not only that, it creates an entertaining atmosphere for your speeches. When you make someone laugh, they are paying attention to you, thus allowing you to better convey your messages. And the problem with me when I first started speaking, I wanted to be funny, yet I was having a problem with making other people laugh. See, my friends thought I was funny. My mom always told me I was funny. Yet conveying that humor to people proved to be a problem. The problem is, I had a very dry sense of humor. I still do. I can think of one joke that I heard once, and it just perfectly personifies my sense of humor. It's by Dave Barry. I'm just going to tell it to you, and so you can actually see where my problem lies, but we will condense it for time purposes. Basically, the things I really hate to deal with is customer service and debt. They are a bane to the consumers out there. One day, this electric company shut off this consumer's power because they weren't able to pay. Unfortunately for this power company, it shut off the power for the Russian National Armory. So they just took up a tank, drove it over, and pointed the barrel right at the window. Eventually, more sooner than not, the power was turned back on. I think this is a wonderful way to circumvent customer service and a great way to pay off debts. Well, you might be asking yourself, how am I going to afford a tank, let alone the matching floor mats for it? And that's when I tell you, aren't you a consumer? You can put it on credit. Just put the tank on the credit card. Then you might be asking yourself, how am I going to be paying off the millions of dollars in credit card debt? Well, you have a tank. See, every time I told that joke, I get zero laughter because it just doesn't really key well, as most of my jokes didn't do well. And I wanted to figure out how to the audience is not in their underwear. And Roy Vaden gave me a very simple way of utilizing humor in a way that works with a mass audience. Rory Vaden is a previous Toastmaster world champion of public speaking, and his book, Audience is Not in Their Underwear, is his tale of how he used analytics and learned humor because he himself wasn't funny and learned how to be funny, which decided to, help me out a lot because I thought I was funny, just other people didn't. Why do we laugh? The answer is we don't really know. There are a lot of theories, and the theory that I like the most, especially for this presentation, is that laughter, is a break in tension. I mean, have you ever gotten to a point where you're just so scared and then you learned that the thing that scared you wasn't really that scary? The first thing you do is laugh. Or if you happen to be a big brother or big sister and you accidentally did something that hurt your little brother and little sister, and you don't want to get in trouble, you know the best way to get them to stop crying is to make them laugh. Laughter is a good way to release that energy from the fight or flight nervous system. When you get into that huge heightened adrenaline rush that comes when you need to get away from a situation. Yet if you stay there longer, it actually will cause you pain overall. And laughter is a good way to kind of dissipate that. Our brains are really good at kind of predicting what another person is about to say. Meaning when you're in a conversation with somebody, your brain unconsciously is kind of ahead of you in listening, and you have a basic idea of where they're going with that conversation, which is why we can talk to each other really fast, because our brain kind of understands where we're going. And George Carlin described that humor is taking them down a train of thought and then derailing it. Give them ketchup when they're expecting a tomato. One reason I really like the ketchup and tomato metaphor is that it makes sense, in the sense where you derail their thought in a way that makes sense. So you give them ketchup when they're expecting a tomato. Ketchup is still part of a tomato, but it's different enough where it breaks that tension and makes you laugh. Instead of just saying something random, like if I just said rutabaga, it's not that funny. Some examples of some derailment from humor's past. Very famous old school comedian named Henny Youngman, who's very famous for the joke, "Take my wife, please." The joke is, you think he's going to say "take my wife, for example," but no, he means take my wife literally, as in kidnap my wife. Or the very old joke as a kid, everyone heard, a guy walked into a bar, the other one ducked. It's funny when you first hear it because you're thinking, oh, a bar, it's a place of an establishment, a place where you go to drink. Oh no, it was an actual bar, and the person hurt himself, which is even funnier because someone else's pain is hilarious. And I remember one time I used this with a friend of mine when he asked me, "Hey man, do you want to go to the Belgian Beer Festival?" And I told him, "No, I don't want to go. I don't really like Belgians. They're not very nice people." So you're taking them down a path of where you thought you was going to go. I don't like Belgian beers, but instead people, which honestly, Belgians are nice people. It's just said that to be funny. Knock knock jokes are a good example of this, or even puns really, but knock knock, who's there, whatever. An easy way to practice is the rule of three. Basically, you take a list and you say something normal, and you say something normal, and then you say something funny. One of the benefits of the rule of three is almost the perfect number. 2 allows you to take them down to the train of thought enough to where they understand where you think they're going to go, and then bam, you hit them with funny. So normal, normal, funny. Eh? Practice a little bit. I mean, think of some ways that you can add a rule of three. I mean, let's say 3 things to remember when you're leaving a campsite. Number 1, make sure you got everything. Number 2, clean up the campsite. Number 3, remember to ditch your mother-in-law. Or something along the lines of, make sure you got everything. 2, clean up your website. 3, piss on the campsite to mark your territory. Number 1, make sure you got everything. Number 2, clean up the campsite. Number 3, burn it down so no one can ever use it again. Or number 1, make sure you got everything. Number 2, clean up your campsite. Number 3, hide the bodies. Basically, it's really that simple. Just to add a nice rule of 3 and to work on it in a way where the more you do it, the more you can find. Which is one of the important things about humor I like adding this clown to all my slides. That's actually one of my goals because it's so freaking creepy. Is the idea that you want the sorry, derailed myself for a second. The idea is you want to practice. A good joke isn't written, it's rewritten. And the important thing is to remember also is when you first start out working on your humor, a lot of times people won't laugh. And that's okay because they don't know you were trying to be funny. And if it's obvious that you're trying to be funny, being able to mention the fact you're trying to be funny is actually a way to diffuse the tension. Thus, they laugh because they're like, "Ooh, you're trying to be funny. Oh, he knew they weren't funny. Let's laugh." For instance, in one of my speeches, I even do this on purpose. I make this really stupid joke that words are magical. That is why it's called spelling. Somebody will get that tomorrow. Just a simple of, I know that joke is dumb, however, bam, I hit you with something, you get that tomorrow, and that generally gets a laugh. As Jake the Dog said from my favorite philosophy TV show, Adventure Time, sucking at something is the first step to being kind of good at it. So keep on practicing your speech. So I challenge you in your next speech to add in a rule of 3. See where you can add in a nice list to add some humor to your speech and work on it. And as you work on it and you get better and better at speaking, next time you give a speech and Marcelo gives you an evaluation, he will not ask you to add in more jokes.